Hello everyone, welcome back to Thinkology. My name is Zach, and I'm going to be your narrator for today while we discuss manipulative marketing. This episode isn't to tell you to boycott all your favorite stores or stop going to the supermarket because they use a store layout or certain colors to convince you to buy more. This is simply about unveiling some tactics I find pretty interesting and making you aware of them. Hey, you might save some money if you know how a store is subliminally trying to market to you anyway. So, let's get right into it and talk about what tools businesses use to sell you as much as they possibly can. The first is called the Gruen transfer, or the Gruen effect. Have you ever wondered why shopping malls aren't rectangles, squares, or circles, or at least have a straightforward layout? There's some malls out there that look like they're confusing on purpose, right? You can wander in them for hours and still have no idea where you are, get lost, and end up spending far more time walking around store to store when you had only one or two things on your shopping list. Though unfortunately there aren't many people who still go to shopping malls now, so that might be a moot point. Anyway, this is because of the Gruen effect. Victor Gruen was a German artist that immigrated to New York in 1938 with nothing but an architect's degree, $8, and no English. He created his first customer trap the next year when he was asked to design a leather goods boutique on Fifth Avenue. The New Yorker says Victor agreed to design it, and the result was a revolutionary storefront with a kind of mini arcade in the entranceway, roughly 17 by 15 feet, 6 exquisite glass cases, spotlights, and fox marble, with green corrugated glass on the ceiling. Talk about distracting and luxurious. It's sure as hell not subtle though, and it's definitely not like most stores have arcades in them. Gruen's next project was his most famous. In the 50s, located in Edina, just outside Minneapolis, Gruen began Southdale. Most malls until this point were extroverted. In other words, they had stores that faced the parking lot as well as the interior. Most shopping malls have blank exterior walls these days. It may be different with an outdoor plaza layout, but this is where those designs began. Gruen had the idea of putting the whole complex under one roof, with air conditioning for the summer and heat for the winter. Almost every other major shopping center had been built on a single level, which made for punishingly long walks. Gruen put stores on two levels, connected by escalators and fed by two-tiered parking. In the middle, he put a kind of town square, a garden court, under a skylight with a fish pond, enormous sculpted trees, a 21-foot cage filled with bright-colored birds, balconies with hanging plants, and a cafe. I mean, hey, it sounds like a gorgeous mall, honestly, and Gruen certainly got the result he wanted, because people raved about it, calling it a pleasure dome with parking, and part of the American way. In 2004, when the New Yorker made this report, they said that virtually every suburban American goes shopping or hangs out in a Southdale facsimile at least once or twice a month. That's huge business, or at least it was, before Amazon and virtual shopping came along. But Gruen invented the mall we all know from our childhoods. There's no doubt he's influential, and those that came after him only expanded upon these ideas. A man named Taubman also putting up malls in the 50s, perfecting the idea of Gruen's large, beautiful shopping centers. He evaluated every detail, making sure the handrails on the second floors of his buildings were transparent, so nothing could disrupt the view to stores. He wanted to remove any physical barriers whenever possible, to create a sense of an even closer access. He carefully thought through everything in impressive detail. The legal seafoods has to be at the end, off of the main mall, because a woman about to spend $5,000 at Versace doesn't want to catch a whiff of a sautéed grouper as she tries on an evening gown. He explains how a mall should be two levels to encourage someone to walk down it on one floor, then back on the other, allowing someone to see everything easily. There's more parking on second floors, according to Taubman, because people flow like water. They go down easier than they go up, and it's why the escalators are on the end, so shoppers have to make the full loop. These malls are beginning to sound like buildings for studying humans, the way he talks about them. Yeah, people rather climb downstairs than go up them. Plenty of this isn't too surprising, but it's interesting to see it in effect, and think that the places you shop are built to draw you in and keep you there. Mall construction hit its peak in the 90s, however, and has dropped off since then. What's popular now are lifestyle centers, more outdoor shops with more boutiques and restaurants. There's far more windows as opposed to blank exteriors, which can serve their own purpose in marketing as well. It's nice to think that we're headed in the direction of actually wanting to walk outside more, as many shopping malls close or are repurposed completely. Hell, even Gruen eventually denounced malls because he said his ideas had been bastardized. I'm sure there's plenty of subliminal marketing to be had in these lifestyle centers too, but still, definitely feels less like being a mouse in a cage. Now that we know how the Gruen effect came to be, we're going to talk about how it's used today. One store that takes serious advantage of this is IKEA. I mean, look at this freaking map. It literally forces you to wander throughout the entire building until you can leave. It looks like it's almost impossible to take a shortcut because the store itself is steering you to look through every product, every display before you can leave with the item you actually came there for. Plus, researchers have found that increased exposure leads to impulse buys. How many times have you strayed from your grocery list, grabbed something at the cash register? Well, all that adds up. In a study of 2,000 consumers, the average amount of money spent on impulse buys was over $5,000 a year. I'll admit that I have definitely grabbed more than I've needed in the past while shopping. Grocery stores have their own similar cheats. They put milk, a common household item, in the back of the store. Fresh bread is put in paper bags, which makes it go stale faster than plastic, in the hopes that you'll buy more sooner. Flowers are right at the front, shelves are strategically stocked so that items geared towards kids are on the lower shelves. You get the picture. Again, I'm not saying don't shop at grocery stores. You kind of have to if you don't want to starve. It's just something to be aware of. Now, when you hear the phrase marketing manipulation, I'm sure you think of something abusive or deceptive. The word manipulation sounds unethical, so I don't want to throw the term around and say that these stores are manipulating you, though they're undoubtedly influencing customers. Mildly manipulating? Maybe. Well, I guess you can make up your own mind. Maybe after seeing all the child labor from Nestle, abuse from Autism Speaks, and other downright horrors, these kind of tactics seem harmless by comparison. Of course, it's about to get far worse than store layout. It's not just about how stores are designed, but everything, even how products are laid out and presented that affects a consumer. But what about if a customer seems hesitant? What if a company wants to push them in the right direction? Well, according to Shopify, dark patterns are elements of product design created to make users do things they might not want to do. Actions that benefit the business, not the users. The term itself was originally coined by Harry Brignall in 2010. Harry created a website called Dark Patterns, which is dedicated to chronicling the worst examples of dark patterns. On the website, you can see for yourself what these dark patterns are, and these seem to be far more manipulative than just mall layout. For some examples, there's a question being purposefully confusing to force an answer you didn't want to give, getting into a situation like a premium subscription really easily, only to find getting out really difficult, hidden fees, disguised ads, and other similar problems. I'm sure you've all faced at least one of these. I know I have. It's easy to sign up for a subscription online, then you have to say no about 20 times, or call and wait in a 1-hour hold line to cancel. They're not making it difficult by accident. One dark pattern example the website gave was LinkedIn, which actually faced a $13 million lawsuit in 2015 because of their dishonest design. Not only is it almost impossible to opt out of the annoying expand your professional network emails from LinkedIn, but one issue came from their sign-up process, during which they claim not to store your password or email anyone without permission. Despite this, LinkedIn sends automated follow-up reminders on a new user's behalf to any contacts harvested from his or her webmail accounts, which are presented in such a way as to appear as if they came directly from the user. Under California law, the sitting judge has deemed this illegal. Consequently, if you were a member of LinkedIn's Ad Connection program between September 2011 and October 2014, you can submit a claim to get a payout. Each affected user only got about $10, but hey, at least it's something. At least it sends a message to other companies, even if we know this is only going to happen over and over again. One of the even more harmful examples that the Dark Patterns website lists is the Affinion Group. This one is more harmful just because it can cost you money as opposed to just being purely irritating. The website shows how when you go to a train ticket purchasing website that's partnered with Affinion, everything goes smoothly at first. Then, once you complete the payment process, you go to a confirmation screen, and that little blue button that says continue looks like it's from the website. I mean, look at the first two screenshots, then the third. Don't those look the same? Well, that blue continue box is an ad, and it'll take you to another site trying to convince you to sign up for a money-off voucher, only to enroll you in a monthly subscription. Is this a ton of money? Will most people consider it more than an annoyance? Probably not. But for people on a budget that aren't expecting that money to come out of their bank account, it could pose a serious problem. That could be grocery money spent on something pointless because someone was trying to get a voucher and ended up being misled without realizing it. There's other things called confirm shaming, where the confirm button will say something like, "No thanks, I don't want one-day delivery service." There's even a Tumblr page devoted to this bullshit where the no thanks buttons are replaced with, "I don't want a 10% discount and free assets," or "No thanks, I know everything about gardening," to a gardening guide. "No thanks, I'm not into savings." And even the stupidest one right at the top, "I'm boring." Again, this might not be outright harmful like the bait and switch, MLMs, and some other of the topics I've covered here, but it's a dark pattern for a reason. Guilting someone into buying is no way to sell a product. Even large tech companies like Microsoft made it just about impossible to avoid updating to Windows 10 when they literally changed the X, the close button, to mean accepting the upgrade instead of closing the window, like a logical person would assume. Since when did closing out of Windows mean accepting anything? Microsoft admit they went too far with this, but it's a huge yikes from me that this even happened at all. Chris Capocella, Chief Marketing Officer at Microsoft, said in the latest edition of the Windows Weekly that this was the moment when the company indeed went too far, pointing out that the 2 weeks between the moment when the user started complaining about the unexpected behavior and when a patch was released were very painful. We know we want people to be running Windows 10 from a security perspective, but finding the right balance where you're not stepping over the line of being too aggressive is something we tried, and for a lot of the year I think we got it right. But there was one particular moment in particular where, the red X in the dialog box, which typically means you cancel, didn't mean cancel, he said. And within a couple of hours of that hitting the world, with the listening systems we have, we knew that we had gone too far. And then, of course, it takes some time to roll out the update that changes that behavior. And those 2 weeks were pretty painful and clearly a low light for us. We learned a lot from it, obviously. In other words, the general public absolutely blew up, and they regretted this ballsy move within hours. Microsoft may have learned, but there's plenty of other companies with these dark patterns out there. One is actually named after Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg himself, called Privacy Zuckering. Darkpatterns.org explains that today, privacy zuckering seems to take place mainly behind the scenes, thanks to the data brokerage industry. Here's how it works. When you use a service, for example a store card, the small print hidden in the terms and conditions gives them permission to sell your personal data to anyone. Data brokers buy it and combine it with everything else they find about you online into a profile, which they then resell. Your profile may contain information about your sexual preferences, physical and mental health. In theory, your profile could result in you being refused services such as insurance or loans. The industry is currently not well regulated, and it is very difficult to opt out of having your data brokered. To advertisers, data is invaluable. Knowing who to sell to, their buying habits, what ads to use, ages, all that good stuff. We already talked about how insanely often people impulse buy. Imagine you're selling a product and can advertise straight on your target market's feed. No wonder the data brokerage industry is gigantic. And it's not always an honest industry either. Data brokers may utilize various business models, but on the most basic level, data brokerage involves sourcing and aggregating data, and reselling the most valuable categories of users to third parties. For example, one of the biggest scandals to date involved a data broker that sold to advertisers contact data of rape victims, alcoholics, and erectile dysfunction sufferers. Such lists sold for $79 per 1,000 contracts. The lists go on. The people compiling these lists actually intended on using such personal information for marketing, information they had no right to resell. I digress. This is a whole separate industry going on here, but it's related to these businesses that do sell your information in this zuckering dark pattern. Facebook may be the most notorious for this, but it has happened before in other companies. I'm sure it can and will happen again. Some of these dark patterns seem harmless. I can't really call a stupid confirm-shaming button manipulation, but there's a fine line there between annoying and harmless and downright deceptive that all too many companies seem eager to cross. We started with an interesting bit on the Gruen effect in malls, got into some dark territory, and now we'll end on a slightly fluffier note. Color and marketing. I'm sure some of you may know that McDonald's is yellow because yellow is supposed to be a color that makes you hungry. But why is that? Is that even real? Well, I'm going to finish off by talking about this side to marketing, which thankfully is far less sinister than stealing your data. Color affects how we purchase things, because humans are extremely visual. Seriously, 93% of the reason we buy something in the first place is due to visual appearance. Some websites say that yellow evokes optimism, orange makes a buyer feel confident, red is exciting, pink is romantic and feminine, purple is soothing and luxurious. You get the point here. I know this all sounds cheesy and ridiculous, but colors truly do affect your spending. Blue, for example, is supposed to be a color of trust. Maybe that's why so many banks are blue. Orange is associated with affordability, which is why it's at Home Depot and Payless stores that are trying to impress upon consumers they have a good value. Now, this is kind of a chicken or the egg situation. Do we associate affordability with orange for some random subliminal reason, or because we've seen it at more affordable shops, and then it becomes ingrained into us? To find out, I went to the National Library of Medicine online and found a study from 2015 entitled Color and Psychological Functioning, a review of theoretical and empirical work. As far as I can tell, it's a little bit of both, and it affects far more than just marketing. Light blue has been shown to increase the performance in attention-based tasks, whereas athletes wearing red have outperformed athletes wearing blue. Studies say that viewing red prior to a challenging cognitive task can undermine a performance. And heterosexual men find red more attractive on women than other chromatic colors, but in terms of marketing, color can play a role. According to Psychology Today, nearly every academic study on colors and branding will tell you that it's far more important for your brand's colors to support the personality you want to portray instead of trying to align with stereotypical color associations. Consider the inaccuracy of making broad statements such as green means calm. The context is missing. Sometimes green is used to brand environmental issues such as Timberland's Green Standard, but other times it's meant to brand financial spaces such as Mint.com. And while brown may be used for a rugged appeal, think saddleback leather, when positioned in another context, brown can be used to create a warm, inviting feeling, Thanksgiving, or to stir your appetite, every chocolate commercial you've ever seen. Though this isn't the most straightforward answer, other sources have agreed that while color may be subjective, there are some patterns worth noticing. Modern, tech, and luxury products are probably more likely to use white, silver, or gray color, while feminine products often lead towards pink because it's supposed to be a girly color. And fun fact, research suggests that the color blue suppresses your appetite because there aren't many naturally occurring blue-hued foods other than blueberries, gooseberries, eggplant, and perhaps bluish-purple potatoes. Long ago, when your ancestors were out foraging for sources of food, blue, black, and purple signaled that something was poisonous, and it's possible that the behavior of avoiding those colors in food are still with you. Research has found that when foods were dyed blue, people found them much less appealing, even if the food tasted good. It's even been suggested that you put a blue light in your fridge to discourage you from reaching in for more food. So what came first? Our feelings about the color, or the subliminal associations we made growing up? Well, I'm not sure there's any way to know for certain. But it makes you wonder, would more men like the color pink if it weren't marketed so much in toy stores or aisles of Target and other department stores as the girl aisle? Maybe if yellow weren't the color of a happy face, a different color would make us smile instead. It's interesting to think about, knowing this is how logos and brands have been developed for decades. With all that said, this episode of Thinkology is coming to an end. Some marketing may just be marketing. Some of it is downright manipulative and shady. No surprise there, but hey, maybe some of you might put a blue light bulb in your fridge or be a bit more aware about taking detours at IKEA now. Who knows? Anyway, thanks so much for listening. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up button if you liked the video. If you'd like to see more content from me, you can check out my channel Zach X Fuller, linked in the description below. Thanks again for tuning into this episode of Thinkology. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!